آمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in great detail throughout the Quran, and it's a reoccurring theme and a reoccurring story. It's one of the most repeated stories in the Quran. And that is the most detailed events and milestones in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. A little bit about Ibrahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Ibrahim, وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا. Allah has taken for himself Ibrahim as a personal, the most personal of friends. A Khalil in the Arabic language, Khalil, ala wazni fa'il. It is the highest level of affection one human being can have for another. This is referred to as al-khulla. This is referred to as a khalil. A khalil in the Arabic language is referring to a place being completely vacated in order to accommodate one and one only. That is the nature of a khalil. So what does that mean? That means that linguistically, a khalil in the Arabic language, there is only room for one in a person's heart. If I say, so-and-so is my khalil, that means that there is no room in my heart for anyone else. And so naturally, it is incorrect for a person to claim that they have more than one khalil. This is not possible. It's like saying my one and only. So if you were to say, my one and only is Tom, Dick, and Harry, there's a problem with that, because that contradicts the statement one and only. So a khalil is the highest level of friendship and affection that one can have for another. And by its nature, this word articulates one, meaning that the heart has no room in it for this kind of affection, only for one person. And that is why when our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was on his deathbed and he was passing away, he said, while the companions were there, he said, لو كنت متخذا أحدا خليلا لاتخذت أبا بكر خليلا ولكن الله اتخذني خليلا كما اتخذ إبراهيم خليلا. He said, if I were to have a khalil, hypothetically, of anyone from this dunya, it would be Abu Bakr. But I have no khalil other than Allah, because Allah has taken me as a khalil just as he has taken Ibrahim as a khalil. And this is one of the things that is specific to Allah. A human being can only have one khalil, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has two. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is none like he. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah took Ibrahim as his Khalil. That is an incredibly lofty position to have. And this is why on the night of Al-Mi'raj, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ascended into the heavens for his meeting with Allah, he found Ibrahim alayhi salam in which heaven? Anyone know? Huh? 7? Was it the 7th? Huh? 4th? Who was in the 4th? Idris was in the 4th. The 5th was Musa alayhi salam. The 6th was Ibrahim. The 7th, he met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's where Sidrat al-Muntaha, paradise, was. So he found Ibrahim to be in the 6th heaven, the highest level you can go. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam, he is the Khalil of Allah. And actually, that's why the area in Palestine, the whole city, is referred to as Al-Khalil. The city is named Al-Khalil because they claim Ibrahim alayhi salam that his grave is there. Allahu a'lam, but this is the history behind that city and its name. This is the person we're speaking about here. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah described him with one description in Surah An-Najm. He said, وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ الَّذِي وَفَّى. He said, Ibrahim, the one who completed. He didn't say completed what? Completed, meaning he completed and fulfilled everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him. So this is Khalil, this is Ibrahim alayhi salam. So when we know these things, and we read in Surah Ibrahim, that Ibrahim alayhi salam took Hajar and Ismail out to the desert of Arabia. And he left them there at the ruins of the Kaaba. And he turned and left. When he became out of sight, when he ventured far enough that they couldn't see him, he turned around and made dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recalls this dua to us in the ending verses of Surah Ibrahim. He tells us that Ibrahim made this lengthy dua, and that's why the surah is named after him. What did he say in this dua? He said, وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. Part of his dua was, please, that he begged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to distance him and his offspring from the worship of idols. That is a very strange dua to make. It's very peculiar. It draws our attention. Why? Because Ibrahim was over 80 years old when he made this dua. And because Ibrahim spent his entire life destroying the idols. As a matter of fact, the only prophet in the Quran who is recounted to have physically destroyed idols with his hand is Ibrahim alayhi salam. So after all that age and all that travel and all of that friction between him and his people regarding the worship of idols, why is Ibrahim still afraid that he might start worshiping idols? It's a very peculiar thing. He's so old, and his legacy, his entire identity has been built on anti-paganism, not worshiping other than Allah. He is the muwahhid, the father of prophets. Why is he afraid that he somehow is going to fall into the worship of idols? Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, rahimahullah, he said regarding this verse, he said, who then is going to be so certain of his own tawheed after Ibrahim himself was said to have doubted himself? Ibrahim himself, the father of tawheed, the one who named us the Muslims, the one who destroyed the idols with his own hand, he himself, after all of this, is still afraid of a shirk. He's still afraid that some portion of idolatry may make its way into his actions or intentions. So the tabi'een and the companions, they say, what is the lesson that we take from this verse? The lesson is, how could you ever feel safe and so sure of your tawheed and the veracity of your tawheed if Ibrahim himself was afraid? This means that no matter how old we get, no matter how knowledgeable we get, no matter how well we perfect our intentions, a shirk is always a possibility. And we have to constantly check ourselves, constantly examine ourselves, our beliefs, because shirk is not just prostrating to an idol. That's what the culmination of shirk looks like. A shirk is flipping a coin to decide which restaurant to go to. A shirk is when a person looks at his horoscopes. A shirk is when a person believes in superstitions and omens. A shirk is when a person hears or sees an owl at night or a crow over his house and starts to fear that a death is coming to the home because of that. A shirk is believing that a person was murdered in a house, so his soul continues to haunt this house because the soul has nothing better to do than to hang out in the place that it was murdered for, right? All of this superstition, a shirk is wearing something on your neck or on your arm or on your wrist for good luck, having a lucky belt, or afraid that if you change your socks, you're not going to be as good at your baseball or basketball game. This is what shirk is. And it permeates our society, this superstition in all of its forms. This is shirk. And this is what Ibraheem alayhi salam was so afraid of. Oftentimes, unfortunately, Muslims, many of us, we overlook this issue. We say, we're Muslim, tawheed, tawheed, tawheed. We're just constantly, speaking about it like we're ever going to be in danger of that. We're Muslims. We could never fall into shirk. Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't have that attitude. Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't feel that he knew and that tawheed and shirk wasn't something that he had to study and receive instruction from Allah himself in order to avoid. Listen to this narration, and we will end with this. This narration is collected by Imam Ahmad and others on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas and also on the authority of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لَلشِّرْكُ فِي أُمَّتِي أَخْفَى مِنْ دَبِيبِ النَّمْلِ عَلَى الصَّفَا السَّوْدَاء. He said, shirk, superstitions in my nation, it is so silent and unnoticed, it's like the footsteps of ants on a hard marble, on a stone. Can anyone hear the footsteps of ants on stone? That is how silent shirk is in my ummah. And so Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu heard this and he was terrified, obviously. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said not once but twice in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ. Allah will never forgive shirk. And so that is the only sin Allah will not forgive. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, when Abu Bakr became frightened by this, shirk in my ummah its presence is more silent and unnoticed amongst my followers than the footsteps of an ant on stone, on granite. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to Abu Bakr, when Abu Bakr heard this, he said, what shall we do? And he said, قُلْ اللهم إني أعوذ بك أن أشرك بك وأنا أعلم وأستغفرك مما لا أعلم. He taught him a dua that we need to learn and memorize. And not just learn and memorize, this doesn't mean that you don't study tawheed and shirk from the Quran, from the Sunnah, from the scholars of Islam in order to avoid it. But this sets your heart in the proper place. He taught him a dua to make in the day and night. And that dua is, O Allah, I seek refuge in you, lest I associate unto you knowingly. And I seek forgiveness for that which I do not know. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our tawheed, to teach us at-tawheed, to ward off a shirk and superstition, to remove it from our hearts and our homes, and that He subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of the true followers of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, all the way through the gates of paradise. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.